our second newsletter, focused on that theme of cultivating courage. And boy, it seems like every day there are multiple stories that challenge us to show up with courage and curiosity and kindness and compassion and an openness to inclusive belonging building. I see that as the seed, or the seeds for community resilience and transformation. So that we can genuinely become what I think our community has always been meant to be. And definitely so United Way can become what we have been meant to be.
So let's do it backwards. Let's start there because we're there.
Okay.
With this idea of what does it take for us to sit with the folks that need to hear the impacts of the big decisions that are being made in the world? What is it going to take for us to be able to sit with them and have meaningful conversation and be able to connect on a one human to another human basis?
Well, I think, the first value that comes to mind when you ask me that question, what is it going to take? And the first value that comes to mind, honestly, is courage. And, it's a value. It's my first value when I think of the source of my actions, and the source of the inspiration for my actions is, having the courage to be in the moment and show up for the moment. Maya Angelou says that's the first virtue, because all the other virtues come from having the courage to show up. So the first thing is to have courage, to muster the courage to show up for the conversation and for whatever is going to be in the conversation. And then for me to show up with the other values that I stand for myself and all others: kindness, compassion, and importantly, inclusive belonging, which means I need to make space for having a conversation with you, who I recognize as a part of me that I have not yet met, and be courageously and kindly and compassionately making space for the uncertainty and the discomfort that might come from the conversation that we authentically have together. So that's like grounding in a starting place. And then to approach the conversation with genuine curiosity, and wanting to be a sincere witness for you and to you, and what you share with me, which means I'm gonna make room for your midlife crisis or whatever the wound or the trauma is behind what brings you into this conversation today, right? So if we start there, we may not, like or agree with one another on many things, but we could start with at least those values and those principles as our common ground.
Well, and it's an ongoing process, right? You started with the courage to ask for the conversation.
Right.
You followed up with the courage to show up for the conversation. And then the conversation starts and somebody else says something that is shaking you to the core of your personal beliefs. And what then? Is it courage? Is it kindness? Is it gluing your butt to the chair? Like what's the magic recipe for that part?
Well, so then I would like check in with my kindness and compassionate values, like for myself first, and just go, oh, well, that was unexpected, or
Mm.
oh yeah, I felt like we would go here. And then I would, you know, in that sort of pause and reflection, be thinking about getting curious,
Mm.
and with genuine and sincere curiosity, ask, well, tell me more about
Mm.
where you're coming from with that. What makes you think that's what's happening right here? What have you seen? What have you experienced? What,
Mhm.
what are you learning, and where are you learning that from? Um, and so, little by little, getting getting and appreciating perspective. The beauty of being a sincere witness is all it requires of us is to just, sit and listen deeply,
Mm.
not actively, deeply,
Mm.
turning down the volume on our inner critics, who might be like coming up with our yeah buts, or our counter data, or well, those are false news facts or whatever. Just listening.
Mm.
Where is that coming from? And then listening to that and getting curious about what's being said next, and asking more questions and going more deeply. Behind that, I'm going to get to know um, what moves you,
Mm.
and also what scares you, and what's scaring you right now.
Mhm.
um, and and I'm going to be listening with compassion.
Mm.
Um, so
Thank you for saying that piece, because the idea of what moves you and what scares you can then be manipulated into other things, but that's not what you're talking about. So the
no,
outcome, what is the desired outcome of understanding those things about another human being?
so I mean, thank you for pointing that out, because I think we see a lot in what is going on in our body politic right now,
Mm-hmm.
the weaponization of fear,
Mm.
and that's not what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm talking about instead is recognizing that someone's fear is a trigger that comes from a really authentic and probably very, very old
Mm.
wound or trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to know about that experience of harm, or that experience of isolation, whatever that pain is, and how
Mm-hmm.
that is driving and affecting how they move in the world, and whether or not, and how they feel safe.
Mm.
I want to understand that,
Mm-hmm.
and build connection, again, inclusive belonging, by 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 building trust, and I'm listening, and I see you.
Mm.
And importantly, and I've really genuinely learned this just from reading the work of Valerie Kaur, um, in her book See No Stranger, and also Sage Warrior, to see in you what what you're showing me as a part of me that I have not yet met.
Mm-hmm.
Because, whatever that is in you, you're mirroring something in me that I just haven't gotten acquainted with
Mm-hmm.
yet. I genuinely believe we are one, and we come from the same stardust. There are two things that are forever: stardust and love.
Mm-hmm.
And we come from you know, the same essence. So if if I sort of set aside the conditioning that I've experienced, that is like a divide and conquer, and I'm going to pull myself up by my bootstraps, and I'm on my own, and all of that, and if it is to be, it's up to me. I'm going to set all that aside. I'm turning down the volume on all that,
Mm-hmm.
so that I can genuinely listen and be in community with you.
So then the context for this conversation, imagining the need to sit in and speak with folks that we they're part of us, but we don't necessarily agree with them. Can you say more about why this skill and expansion of how we're interacting with other folks is feeling necessary to you at this time?
Well, God, there are so many reasons why I think it's necessary for us in our region.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a headline that's not a headline. Our region is hurting.
Mm-hmm.
Our region has been reeling from emergencies and disasters and the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, the current emergency is the chaos and the disruption of our body politic as we have known it over the past few months, and the ripple effects of the shifts and the unpredictability of what the ripple effects will be in time as federal policy is enacted and emerges and begins to be experienced at the implementation level here in our community. So those changes may not directly affect some people, but the fact of the matter is they affect them because they affect our ecosystem. We're all swimming in the same water. We're all drinking the same water. We're all breathing the same air. And when these changes come down and they adversely affect one person in our community, that ripples out to all the rest of us. So I think we're in a moment when at the federal level we've got this like disturbance in the force that is affecting us. However, that's just the latest emergency in a long line of emergencies that we have been reacting to, at least since the 2015-2016 fires in Lake County and the 2017 fires, that affected our whole region and everything since then. So there's like that trauma, and then like the ripple effects of that are also the grief and the grieving of everything that we've experienced and lost over all this time. And I've talked with many friends and colleagues over all these years about what I sense as a real pervasive feeling of grief and grieving that is underlying so many of our interactions in the community, especially in our work with government partners, first responders, in our work with our nonprofit and community-based grassroots partners, and certainly in our work directly with individuals in the community who call 211 or who are here to get tax assistance through Earn It, Keep It, Save It. So having these conversations now, it's like, let's not waste a good crisis, right? Having these conversations now and really bringing our full attention to, we may not have created all of these crises, but we have inherited them. And I genuinely believe we are built for this time. And the way that we show up for this time is by showing up with our values, showing up with our compassion, our dignity, our kindness, our desire for fairness, our innate knowing what fairness feels like. Any little 2-year-old or 3-year-old knows what's fair on the playground. And our integrity, same thing, what feels whole. So for me, I feel like we need this conversation now because all of this has been going on, and now we have in front of us so many different challenges that are coming to the fore all at once, revealing this is our community now, here are our needs. How do we want to show up and respond? How do we want to, hunker down and hide? Do we want to stoke more separation? The right answer is, are we ready to build belonging and community? Because that's what's going to build resilience and the capacity in this ecosystem for everybody to thrive. And I sincerely believe that the most impact and the most effective way to engage with the present moment is to engage here at the local level and follow your heart. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you. Can you talk about some of the specific challenges that you're seeing unfolding in our region now? That you're saying these are my words, but pregnant moment.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about what we're on the precipice of, or what's already unfolding from your vantage point?
Yeah. So since you used the word pregnant, I'm going to share my favorite quote from Dr. Monica Sharma and Radical Transformational Leadership Training. And I think a lot of people will relate to this. She often says, confusion is a very pregnant space for emergence and discovery. And we're experiencing a time in our community's, history, evolution, development, where there's a lot of confusion, because all of those dynamics that I described that are historical, that were already happening here, have now been complicated by everything that's happening at the federal level and the ripple effects of how that's going to, impact us. So, some of the things that are happening at the federal level that are already affecting us are, for example, immigration legal services that were being funded with federal support. All of those resources have been paused at the federal level. Importantly, emergency food and shelter, and USDA support for food banks, and food pantries, that's also been paused, to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars. What's currently being debated, and is the significant reduction in SNAP benefits, so formerly known as food stamps, and Medicaid benefits, so medical care and assistance to the most indigent people, and that's 100% going to affect thousands and thousands of people in our region. Do you know who it's also going to affect? Their employers. And so a myth is that folks who are on food stamps and folks who are on Medicaid are not employed. In United Way's research, not true. 96% of people who are struggling to make ends meet, according to the United Ways of California real cost measure, are employed. At least one person in the household is employed. So working people, they're working, but they're underemployed. They're undercompensated for whatever they do, right? And often what's happening is they're working in spaces where part of the employer's way of making ends meet is they're externalizing costs, right? They're keeping the wages low. Their employees qualify for food stamps and they qualify for Medicaid. So that's how they're making it work. Well, when those benefits go away, those employees are going to struggle that much more. And it'll show up in the employers, in the employees' capacity, capability, reliability, to show up for work. So that's going to unfold if those reductions happen. And it's unconscionable to me that the federal budget would be balancing itself literally on the backs of the most vulnerable people
Mm.
in our country, but right now that's what's being debated, and somehow that 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 makes sense to those folks. Not here, and so we've got to show up as a community. This, for those organizations and those individuals in our community who are definitely going to be adversely affected. Seniors, single moms, single dads. 50% of single dads, 70% of single moms struggle to make ends meet, and close to 20% of seniors struggle to make ends meet. And if there are changes at the federal level in Social Security, more seniors are going to struggle too. So, so that is our moment. That's why it's important for us to show up at this moment. Is this system that we've created, flawed as it was, when it evaporates, assuming that's what's effectively happening, in order for us to kind of keep moving forward, we need to be as whole as we can be, and that only happens when we show up for one another, in our kindness, in our compassion, in our intention to build community and resilience.